Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Welcome, my friends, to Paranormal Heart Podcast, a safe place to talk about your paranormal encounters. I'm your host, Kat Ward. In episode 124, my special guests are Marci and Cimi of Louisiana Spirits. Marci and Cimi talk about experiences they've had with entities from a very young age, remembering past lives, and how they started investigating with Louisiana Spirits. If you have any stories related to paranormal experiences, like ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, extraterrestrials, local legends, or your psychic gifts, I would love to hear from you. I'm also always looking for military, first responders, or pilots and flight crew who have had strange encounters. You can be a guest on the show and share your story, or you can send me your real story for me to narrate on the show. You can reach out to me at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. If you want to remain anonymous, I will make sure not to mention your real name. New episodes of the show are released on the second and last Sunday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find me on YouTube, Podbean, and all major podcast platforms. And if you wish to support the show, please share it with others, like each episode, and don't forget to leave a review. It would help us reach more people and make them realize that they are not alone in their paranormal experiences. And you can also find Paranormal Heart Podcast merchandise on Teepublic. You can buy mugs, t-shirts, hats, and so much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, Marci and Cimi. Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Really excited to have you on, so thank you so much for being my guest. I thought we could start off with, you could just give us a little bit of a background about yourselves, and then we'll get into some evidence that you've captured and some investigations. That's the word. So who wants to go first?
I can go first. My name's Marci, and I'm the state director of Louisiana Spirits.
I'm Cimi, and I am the case manager and a lead investigator.
Nice. So, Marci, I think we'll start with you. How did you get into the paranormal? When did it first start for you?
It really started when I was a child. And actually, I would say that it started even when I was an infant. I didn't know it at the time, but my mother had a visit from someone. She doesn't know who it was. The room got cold. She felt like somebody was looking over her shoulder, but she didn't want to look back. And I was only a few months old. And so it started there, and then as a child, I would see things, I would hear things, I would just catch someone walking down the hall, go down the hall to check, there was nobody there, and so that just kind of led me to think, what's going on? And then when I got older, I actually investigated with Louisiana Spirits. This was years ago when they were first established, and I fell in love with it, so I've been doing it since then.
Nice. Do you know if anyone else in your family has had abilities or saw ghosts or anything like that?
If they did, they probably wouldn't say that they did. I will say that my mother was very just kind of middle of the road kind of person, and she just spoke her mind, and she actually had some very interesting experiences in her life, one of which was an out-of-body experience. So she was definitely a believer in this.
Okay. Cimi, how about you?
Mine's kind of like Marci. I was always able to see them. I could never hear them. I could remember being very, very little and telling my parents that I grew up and I shrunk back down. And I can almost remember a past life. And my mom is kind of like Marcy's mom. She's a free spirit, and she was always open to, if we said something, if we saw something, she was always that mom that was like, okay, what did we see? Let's talk about it. What's going on here? And we're in the area that we're in is not very open to it. So to have family members that kind of experienced it was really, really nice to have that bounce back, and that I guess that
Support.
I don't know that. Yeah, that support. Yeah, it was really, really nice to have that. And even now, I started with Louisiana Spirits in 2014. I was with them for a few years and left to follow my husband's military career. And I came back and I fell in love with Marcy and everybody. Like, it just felt like it was home again.
Nice.
It felt like my family. So yeah,
Is your husband still acting, serving?
he retired.
Ah, my husband
Yes.
is also Canadian military, and he's retiring next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy it.
I don't know. We'll have to talk to each other now.
It takes some adjusting, I promise.
Okay, so when did you say you started with the Louisiana Spirit? For both of you? Did you join at the same time?
No, I started probably in 2000 and maybe 2008, 2009. I was in it for several years. I worked my way up to being the case manager, and then, life just happens, and I'm a teacher, so I just had a lot going on. So I had to step away for a while, and I came back probably a little over 3 years now. And so just started back as case manager for the Acadiana area, and then just talked to our founder and became the state director.
Nice. Cimi, I think you mentioned it earlier already. Yeah.
Yeah,
2000
I started in 2014.
Yeah.
I had an experience a few years before, and I just could not understand it. I just could not, and I spoke to the team that it was Acadian. I mean, the Acadiana chapter, but it was something else, and I just started investigating with them and became a member. And then, like I said, I left to follow my husband's career. But yeah, Louisiana Spirits is definitely a team that is one like no other.
You have some pretty impressive individuals in the team, too. You have retired military, medical field, city government, teachers. Like, there's just so, like, a very
Yes.
well-rounded, this is really impressive. Usually, it's been my experience, like, it's usually friends that decided they were going to start a chapter or whatever. So they have similar backgrounds, but yours is just like a mix. I love that.
It is.
So there's so many things that everybody brings to the table, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And we have 5 chapters to cover the whole state. So we have like the northern chapter, the central chapter, west, the Acadiana chapter, and then over to your east is Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And, every chapter has members who just are in just every kind of field you can imagine. And I think it's great because like you said, everybody brings something to the table,
Yeah, that's very important. There was one time our team had someone who was who knew a little bit about architecture and engineering and things like that. So one of the buildings that we had gone into had a fire, and he was able to try and tell us where he thought it started, and it's just things like that. Because if a building did have a fire and then they didn't tear it down, they just kind of rebuilt it, there might be structural damages that you don't know about, and there might be certain things that are creaking, and people in that building might think that they're ghosts, but it's not. It's just the building. So, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
True. Very true.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about. So you've investigated over 300 locations. Is that just your chapter, or is it all of them together?
So that's all of the chapters together. If you go on our website, you'll see that we break it down into different locations. There's, plantations, businesses, historic businesses, private clients. And when you add all of those together, it's close to 300. I think it's over 300 the last time I counted. So we investigate just all over Louisiana.
That's an impressive amount of
Thank you.
investigations. Yeah. So, is there any place in particular that you prefer investigating? Is it like historical places, private residences? Cimi, we'll start with you.
I mean, I think every ghost hunter or paranormal investigator loves historical locations, but I'm always that one person that I have that mama heart that I always like to help somebody.
Yep.
So private residence, it's kind of a soft spot for me.
Yeah. Marci?
Well, first and foremost, are the private residents, because we want to make sure that they understand that it may not always be spirits. And like you said, you can kind of debunk a lot of things like plumbing, lighting, structure, causing noises. And it does make them feel a lot better when you can debunk a lot of things. And that's the main goal, is to make people feel comfortable in their own home. And then if it does turn out that we do get evidence, we also offer, to kind of instruct them or teach them on how you can live with spirits, if you want to. If you choose not to, we can direct them to, whatever their faith is, mediums, different people like that. So, I mean, I would say that the private clients are priority. But like Cimi said, we all love the history, and we do actually have a few places that are kind of our favorites.
Nice. Can you mention some of those?
Sure, go ahead, Cimi.
St. Landry Courthouse has got to be our number one location. We have never ever gone there and left with anything. There's always some kind of evidence, from the smallest thing to a knock, to a scream, to being touched, our names being called. It's so undeniable. That location's amazing.
And to piggyback on what Simi's saying, because I really feel like that is the majority of the team, at least in the Acadiana area. We love the St. Landry Parish Courthouse. It's not just us that get evidence there. The employees have all, the ones that we've spoken with, have witnessed things. The city parish president, whose office is in the building, he calls us in and says, "Hey, there's something going on. Come here and talk to your friends," and so we'll go and we'll talk to them. But we love it because, like Cimi said, there is always something that goes on in there. And I do feel, and of course, we're all still learning how all of this works. Nobody has the answers. But I do feel like the more we go there, and we've been there a lot, I feel the more they interact with us.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they know us by now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it seems like sometimes, because I definitely feel that investigating someplace only once is not a good way to capture your evidence, because the client might say that, yes, we always have things happen here. You get the team to go in, nothing happens, and it could be maybe they just don't feel like showing themselves to you, but that you go a second time and you might have all kinds of activity.
And I think it's a comfort thing too. Okay, I've seen you here before.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of you as much, maybe so.
And we teach classes also, and that's what
nice.
That's what we try to teach our class participants that come in is, first of all, you can't make spirits perform on command.
Yep.
So, they're either gonna interact with us or they're not. And actually our East team just investigated a B&B that a gentleman's working on to renovate and open up as a B&B. And he has a lot of claims, and they went there and they really didn't get a whole lot. But, we told him, that's because we've only been there once.
Yeah.
If we come back 2 or 3 or 4 times, they might warm up to that team, and, they may get more evidence. So, again, I tell people all the time, we can bring a class into St. Landry Parish Courthouse and say, "Hey, we're always having activity here," but unless they want to interact with us or they feel comfortable with all these other people in there, it's just going to be up to them, you know.
True. Very true.
Are you two in the same location?
No, Simi lives to the west, but she's taking over our central chapter now,
Okay.
which is closer to her. But she is a lead in what we call them leads. We have 5 leads in Acadiana, and she is a lead with Acadiana. So she does come over here and do a lot of our investigations with us.
Nice. Do you find, does your community, do they support your teams?
Well, I mean, I find that
50-50.
I find that the Acadiana, kind of Baton Rouge, New Orleans area seem to be a little more open to things, have a few more clients, you know. Some of the other areas, I think a lot of religion and maybe things like that keep them from opening up and calling, you know. But we do try to make people understand that, you know, the majority of the people on all of the teams are religious. You know, it's not something like, you know, we're not out there conjuring anything, you know.
And I find some communities or some people, they have that mindset that paranormal investigators were there conjuring things, like you said, and they're very, very superstitious. And you, no matter what you say or do, they're just, nope, you're not doing the right thing, and you're evil.
Right.
But I find over the years, it's getting to be a little bit more accepted.
Right.
Yeah.
Still have a long ways to go, I feel, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that too. And, you know, we don't have anything against anybody's religion when we go into a house, whether they're Catholic or Baptist or atheist or whatever. We're there to try to help them understand what's going on with them in their house.
Yeah, I've had some family members who are very Christian, very, very religious. And when I tell them that I know archbishops and cardinals and sisters who investigate, you know, and then they're like, what? It's like, like, and if something happens during an investigation that, because it's above my pay grade to handle the real intense cases, but it's nice to know that we have someone that we know that we can call on for help if we need it.
Right.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about the equipment that you use?
Sure. Go ahead, Simi.
We use basic, was it CCTV cameras? That to me is the best way to catch evidence, because you have, you can hear it, it's recorded, so you can hear voices. It's basically a digital recorder and visual. Because there's times when you hear something and you don't catch it visually, or vice versa. We use our phones to record, but we use Spirit Box, we use K2s, REM pods, Boo Bell. It's this lovely doll that lights up and everybody loves her except for me. And she like screams like this music is just no, I'm good. So we had a team member who he passed away, and he made a lot of equipment for us. And I'm telling you, that equipment is true. It is very true as Boo Bell. And he made us a little like a remote control car that was a REM pod built into it. That if you see that car kind of like move across the room and there's nobody around it, can't really dispute that.
Yeah.
Again, Boo Bell, we had a location in New Iberia where there was a child spirit, and she's a baby doll, and she has little lights and a REM pod in her. And we were talking to the child, and Boo Bell just went off, and nobody was around to touch it. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, kind of have to believe a light up baby doll screaming at you, you know?
Yeah.
Can't really deny that one. But yeah, for the most part, Marci and I are really, really strong on that original digital recorder and I just blanked, EVPs, because you really cannot, it's really hard to deny hearing your name being called and there's nobody in the room but you and this digital recorder. How can you possibly say, oh, I was talking to myself and said my own name? You know, you can't. You really can't. So I know Marcy and I are kind of old school when it comes down to equipment wise.
Yeah, I definitely EVPs are definitely my favorites. I do like the cameras because they're live, so anything that you can sit there and watch them. If you catch something, you're right there, so you know what time it happened, where it happened, who was in the room, those kind of things. Because we're really big on debunking a lot. You know, we're not going to call everything paranormal for sure. We are going to try to debunk it until we just absolutely can't do it. I mean, we may work on something for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour to try to figure out why that happened. And then if we can't debunk it, normally what we'll say is even then I have a really hard time saying it's paranormal. I'll usually say it's possibly paranormal. We've tried to debunk it. We did this, and this. So I'll usually say, so it could possibly be paranormal.
Marcy, I don't think I've ever heard you say, yeah, this is a spirit. I don't think I've ever heard you say 100% this is a spirit. She'll say it might be. But I don't think I've ever heard you say solid, it's 100%.
Right. And it's not that I don't believe, because I've had plenty of experiences that I just could not figure out as a child, even into my adult age, how things happen. So I guess you would call us all kind of skeptic believers,
Yep.
We want to debunk it because we want to make sure that what we have is, absolute, like, okay. Yeah. So we're really strong on that. As a matter of fact, this last Friday, one of our cameras fell in the dressing room of this theater we were in, and the team did everything they could to try to figure out, hey, how did this fall? What happened? We went through all of that, and we just couldn't figure it out. So, I mean, I went over it several times. Okay, are you sure the cord was where you put it? Are you sure? And I know they get tired of me saying those things, but I just want to be certain. And so even though I posted it on our Facebook page, I still put on there, we tried to debunk it, but we're going to have to go back and try to recreate it again, just because that's just kind of how I am.
I think the reason why I take Marcy's debunking so serious is because if we're trying to prove the existence of spirits and afterlife and paranormal, how can we do that if we're saying, yep, that's it, without even trying to figure out a possible way out of this? I mean, say something flies across a room. Okay, was there fans on? Was there this? Or we're not going to say, yeah, that's it. That's what happened. Right. That's the reason why I agree with Marcy so much about debunking, because if we're trying to prove it, we want it to be proven the right way,
Yep, I totally agree. I'm like you two, I'm a believer, but I'm a skeptic too.
Right. And I will say that there are times that, like, I will take it at face value and call it really strange. And for example, like we were talking about earlier, Cimi is not a common name. I don't think I've ever met in my 57 years of life a Cimi, right?
We're the same age.
And so you go into some place and you've got the spirit box going, and obviously whoever's in the room, we're saying, hey, Cimi this, hey, Cimi that. And then you catch an EVP or the spirit box saying Cimi. It's really kind of hard to debunk, if it was a Fred or a Dave or a Robert or, Susan.
For me, it's set on command. If I say, hey, my name is Cimi, what's your name? And it say Cimi, I'm like, are you saying my name? Can you say it again? I'm not just going to say, oh, because, it could be, I've heard Sammy. How many times people thought my name was Sammy?
Yep.
If you say it again and I hear Cimi one more time, I'm like, okay, I heard you.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. So my nickname, as you know, is Cat, and I get a lot of people saying Pat. It's like, no, Cat. And people go like meow, like, yes, meow, but with a K.
Right.
I know. I get it. I get Kimmy, Cammy, Sammy, and half the time I'm just like, yep, okay.
It's just easier to go along with it.
Just go with it.
Yeah. So can you walk us through an investigation, what happens right from the start to the finish?
Okay, so when we get to a location, one of our team members will sit down and kind of go through the paperwork with our clients. We offer paperwork for every investigation we do. Paperwork, release forms, can we release the information? Do you want us to release it as public, private, how you want us to handle that? And then everybody signs the paperwork. And then the rest of our investigators will usually walk around and get readings. So we'll kind of know where wiring or plumbing or anything like that might be located. And then from there, we usually go ahead and set up the cameras based on the clients, where they're seeing things, hearing things. And then places that we might have feelings when we walk through, and then we set up our equipment in those locations, and then we go lights out, and we break up into groups, and we start investigating.
So how long would an investigation take, roughly? They're probably all different.
Well, we kind of leave it up to the client, and we always tell the client that, and because a lot of the clients might be older people and they don't want us there till 12 or 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
So we let them know, hey, when you're ready for us to go, just let us know. If we're not getting a whole lot of evidence, sometimes we might call it early and just tell them, hey, we're going to go home, listen to what we have, look through what we have. If we don't get anything, we are more than welcome to come back and try again. And if we do get something, we'll contact them and let them know what we got. And if it's something that's really active and the client is like, hey, let's stay and keep doing it, I mean, we'll stay and keep going.
Yep. Have you ever had any investigations where you were totally terrified? Or something happened that really startled you?
Cimi?
You're smiling.
Yes. I laugh because it's the one story that, well, I've had two. Marci, my first one was my second ever investigation. It was like a studio apartment, and everybody was sitting on a wall opposite of each other, 4 walls, and everybody in their left ear heard a loud growl. And it was like, okay, I think in that moment I was like, you realize you're investigating these things. You're looking for these things. And I was like, okay, I got the fear out of me. And the second time would be at the Opelousas courthouse. It took me about 2 weeks to recover, honestly.
Really? What happened?
I was touched in a very graphic way.
Oh.
And we had a team member, Michelle, was doing STs at the same time. And I looked at my team member, Jeremy, and I said, I felt like I was touched in a private area. And she at the same time said, it's very tender.
No.
And you can ask Marci, it took me about 2 weeks to really say, okay, I want to come back. I want to do this again.
It's understandable.
Oh, yeah. And we believe, not 100%, but there is a spirit there. And we believe that we've somehow connected his name with the crime that he had with a female. So for us, it was like, it was like, wow, okay, you're really here.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that was for me, Marci. Yeah. And we joke about it now, but at the time it was not. I mean, we joke about it now, but yeah. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Yeah. That was, what, Marci, a few months ago?
Yeah. Back in May.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one rattled me. That one really, really rattled me.
Yeah, I can totally understand. That would rattle me, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marci, what about you?
I can't say that I've ever been really scared or run out of any place. I mean, I can say that when you're touched, wherever you're touched, it's weird. Because, and you do this for so long, and I haven't had any kind of brushing of the face or anything like that. Maybe 5 times in 20 years that I've done this, but when it does happen, it does kind of, freak you out a little bit, because you realize, all right, somebody just grabbed my arm or poked my arm, and there's no one here, And the only thing I can say, the only one that it didn't scare me, but it kind of, I guess I jumped, and then I kind of jumped into kind of angry mode, would have been at the St. Landry Parish Courthouse. We were on the third floor in the jail area, and I was with Michelle and Melinda, and we were all sitting within 3 feet of each other, and we saw a small blue light pass between us, and it went into the bookshelf. And then at the same time that it passed between us, the REM pod on the mail meter just lit up all the way. And so I said, oh, okay, well, if you're here, let us know. This is great. And somebody poked me in the back of the arm. And it was a very hard poke in the back of the arm. And so I did kind of jump, like, what the. I turned around, made sure I didn't hit anything. There was nothing behind me. I was sitting in a chair. There was absolutely nothing behind me. And so that's when I jumped into, okay, look, you can do anything you want in here to let us know you're here, but you are not allowed to touch any of us. Do you understand? And nothing happened to us the rest of the night in that area.
So you saw this orb with your own eyes, or was it through a camera?
No, we saw a tiny blue light.
That's amazing.
That's
incredible. Because I am a non-believer in orbs when they're on TV. I mean, you catch them on camera and stuff. I always teach in the class that it's something that you're going to actually see.
Yeah.
And then you may catch it on camera, or you may catch it, take a picture of it, but it's going to be something that kind of emits its own light because it's supposed to be a ball of energy, right? And that would probably be the only orb that I have seen in all of my years of doing that. And if I would have been there by myself, I would have never been able to convince anybody. But I had Melinda and Michelle with me, and we all saw this little blue light just go right in between us and go right into the bookshelf and disappear. And then on top of that, I would have probably been the one to say it was probably a bug or something. But the mail meter, it went right above the mail, like right where the mail meter was. And when the mail meter just went off at the same time, and then I got poked in the arm, I thought, okay, that's too many things, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I had an employer once when I started my shift. He said, Kat, you have to look at the security footage. We have a ghost here. And I'm like, okay, show me the footage. And I looked at it, and he goes, see, it's a ghost. I'm like, no, that was a bug. No, it was a ghost. I'm like, no, it was a bug. So I was able to slow it down. I said, you can see the antenna. Like, it got really close to the camera. Right. And he was convinced it was a ghost. And it's like, well, yeah, there are some here, but at this moment you didn't capture anything. That was just a bug. Right. But he to this day he doesn't believe me. But
yeah, and I do have a lot of people that write in, and they'll send in video because they're worried or concerned. I've had people that have sent me videos where it literally was just a dust storm in a room, and I do tell them, look, guys, you have nothing to worry about. If this is the only thing that you have, it's just dust, Now, if you have other things going on, we'll definitely come out and check it out for you. But if this is, and they usually say, no, that's it. We just thought, we just thought our house was full of spirits. So it kind of puts a lot of people at ease, Yep.
Yeah. And I think if you do this as long as we all have, you get to the point where you're like, you know what you're looking for. You know what you're looking at. So I don't think it's that they don't understand. I think it's they just don't look at it as much as we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever wear masks if you go to various places like old buildings?
Normally we don't. Now, we just recently did a hospital that was the city parish president said, hey, look, they're getting ready to break it down. So if you guys want to come, and it had been abandoned for years, if you guys want to come check it out, you're more than welcome to do that. But they're fixing to just bulldoze it down. So we did go there, and it did have asbestos there. And so we did wear masks in there. while we investigated, but normally we don't. And I guess it just depends on, how old it is and if there is any kind of asbestos or anything like that in there.
Yeah, I asked because I've been to buildings where they were gutted and there's no plumbing, no electrical, nothing like that, and everything seems fine. But as soon as you put the camera up, you can see all the dust particles just floating all over the place. And after the first couple of times of seeing that happen, I'm like, I might want to start bringing a mask because I'm breathing that in.
Right.
And you can definitely tell that it's not orbs on the camera. It's just dust particles, and you don't
Right.
realize how much, even if you're just walking at a very slow pace, how much dust you're actually going to be kicking up.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, I've been to places where the next day I got up and my sinuses were all messed up.
Yep.
And I figured, okay, you know what? And then you go back and look at the video and you say, oh, well, that's why, because I inhaled half of the dust in this place,
Yeah.
But normally, a lot of the places we go don't have a
Yeah.
whole lot of dust. I mean, you'll see some here and there flying around, but it's not like a whole lot, to be concerned about.
What's your favorite piece of equipment?
Cimi?
I like the spirit box. For me, I know a lot of people call it the noise box, and I just feel like I have a better connection with a spirit if I can hear your voice, because I've talked to spirits before. I've had conversations through a spirit box. I'll never forget Mr. Lewis, and wherever he is to this day, I think of him all the time. Um, I, asked him, "Hey, what's your name?" And he said, "Mr. Lewis." And I said, "Well, hi, Mr. Lewis. How are you?" And he came back, "I'm fine. How are you?" It's You can't really get that, in my opinion, on EVP. I like that connection of hearing your voice. I don't know. To me, just it feels like I'm actually having a conversation with you.
Yep. Marci?
I mean, my favorite, of course, is EVPs. I do love Boo Bell. I love Boo Bell only because it's a lot of sentimental value with
Yeah.
Boo Bell, because Chance was our tech manager, and he one night I called him because I always had crazy ideas, but I didn't know how to build anything. So I would call him up and I would say, "Hey, I think we should do this," and he'd say, "Oh, you mean me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but this is how I want you to do it."
Yeah.
And so he did create Boo Bell for us, and she is a REM pod, and she is a trigger object, and she is, like Simi said, she is creepy. She has lights in her eyes, she has lights on her hands and her feet. When you come near her, she goes off, and then the harder you squeeze her, the louder she gets. So I love her because of the sentimental value. I love EVPs; those are going to always be my favorite. But honestly, and I say this all the time, and you can't prove it, but just personal experiences are my favorite. And like I tell classes, when we do classes, I tell the class participants that, I mean, things that happen to you, I have no, or to me, or to Simi, we have no way to prove those things
Yeah.
except to tell you, hey, this is what happened to me. Um, and then again, I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I'm just telling you, hey, look, I got poked in the back of the arm at the courthouse. I have no way to prove that other than to just tell you, it happened. So
Yeah.
personal experiences are really neat for me. I mean, yeah, you can't really prove them, but I think they're interesting because they actually just kind of, like Simi said, they're letting you know they're there,
Yep. I've heard a lot of people say the best piece of equipment is yourself. But again, like you said,
True.
you can't prove it.
Right.
And that's what we're
Right.
trying
And
to
I think
do.
sometimes, yeah, but I think sometimes it's okay not to prove it.
Right.
Even though it was creepy, I had a connection with a spirit for a few seconds. It
Right.
was, you know, you can't prove it, but it's really, really cool to know,
And yeah, and that's usually what we put on our website or on our Facebook page and social media. When I post something that happened, I will say they were personal experiences. And even with the evidence, I'll post it. But I usually say, hey, look, um, you know, basically, we're leaving this up for you to decide. If you don't believe it, that's fine. If you do, that's fine. I think the one thing that we really have going for us at Louisiana Spirits is that we do a lot of these classes, and participants come in, and a lot of them are skeptics. And so when things happen to them, or they get evidence, when they go home and listen to their recorders or whatever, it kind of validates us in a way, because now we've
Yep.
told you there's activity at this place. You have experienced the activity at this place. So I think that's always a plus.
And you know what else I really like is when a skeptic comes and something happens, they are our evidence.
Yep.
It's like,
Right.
what more proof do you need? This person absolutely did not believe us, and I saw him running down the stairs. Yeah, it's true. It happens.
Well, that's a very interesting story, Simi. Why don't you tell that story?
Please, yes.
This poor man, and to this day, I feel so bad for him for laughing. But so there's one building in Opelousas. It hates men. I don't know what the spirit's deal is, but there was one room that we would go in, and it almost looked like a living room. And there was the left hand corner in the back. Anytime a man would go in that corner, something would happen. The first guy was like, "Okay, sure, we'll go with that." He was in that corner, something grabbed his arm. This man dropped whatever equipment was in his hands and ran. Now, there's another guy, same night, same room. He said, "I'm not worried about it." So he's sitting there in the corner with his arms on his knees, and he had a cat ball, like just a cat toy, between his legs. And he was like, "I don't think you're going to do it to me." That cat ball moved. That man ran out the room. And then we were on to the next victim. Another guy got in that corner. And before I knew it, he's like, no, I don't feel this. I don't like this. We have to go. And I'm like, we told y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all voluntarily sat in that corner by yourself.
And what's interesting too is the first guy that his arm was grabbed, the way he explained it, and he talked to me after, and you could tell he was very shaken.
Oh,
and so I was trying to make him understand that, look, I know it's weird. If it happened to me, and I've been doing this forever, I would freak out too. So don't worry about that. And the way he explained it was that something grabbed his arm into the effect of he could feel each finger going around his arm. And so, he got up and took off running, and Simi went after him. Well, first of all, we don't want anybody to get hurt in the dark.
Yeah.
So she went after him to make sure, he was okay, and got him outside. And I will say that when I spoke to him, he said, "I 100% believe," and he didn't want to go back in that building, which was fine,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want him to understand that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything bad. It's just, hey, guess what? I'm sitting here next to you, letting you know I'm right here,
I think a lot of the times, especially with skeptics, and I mean, this could be totally off, hinge for whatever, but I feel like spirits are automatically like, "Oh, you don't believe I'm here. You don't believe I'm here. I heard you. You said I'm not here." And I mean, this guy, poor thing, I don't even think he finished the night. He was flushed the rest of the night, and I don't think he's been back.
Oh,
But
wow.
I mean, to me, that's one more believer. That's one more person that now knows it's real. It happens.
Yeah.
And the way you described how you could feel every finger grab the arm, that to me tells me that entity is like, "Oh, hang on, I'm going to show you that I'm here."
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how he explained it to me. When he said something grabbed my arm, I just thought, okay, something just kind of grabbed his arm.
Yeah.
But then when he showed me exactly how it happened, I looked at him and I said, "Well, I can be honest with you, that would probably freaked me out a little bit too."
Yeah. And it wasn't just guests of the class. Our teammate Hunter, he came in the room, and Hunter's a very sweet person, very passive, and nothing really rattles him. He left the building sick.
Oh.
Like sick. And he kept apologizing. He's like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "It's okay. Go back to Marci. Go tell Marci. Let Marci know." So it was very clear that I'm not saying it was anything mean or malice or anything like that. I just think that it just didn't want a man there. Because it was fine with women. We were perfectly fine. When it came down to men, they just didn't want them in there.
Do you know what the history of that building was before you went in? Like, was there anything that men were being targeted, for lack of a better term?
The only history that we kind of have about that building is it's been several different things. I think at
Yeah.
one time it was office buildings. I think it was a hotel. There has been some talk, and we haven't been able to validate that talk yet, that possibly could have had something to do with prostitution. We do know that there is a tunnel under that building that goes across the street to a coffee shop, which is now, which used to be a bank. And there was a tunnel. And so, years ago, a lot of people used tunnels to transport alcohol and different things
Yep.
like that. So, we can't validate some of the stories, but we do know that it definitely was an office space. We definitely know it was a motel.
As barbershop.
The barber shop is
Hmm.
below on the
Mhm.
first floor, and that is where Bonnie and Clyde, got his last shave and haircut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before heading north, where they were gunned down. So,
That's interesting.
and that also was an old drugstore. So, there's a lot of history there.
Yep.
So, I don't know.
How many stories is that particular building?
It's 2.
Okay.
And then it has a basement under it, and that's where the old tunnel was.
Mm-hmm.
At one time. They've closed it off since then, but it went straight under the street, across the street, to what is used to be a bank.
Yeah,
And what's
that's-
odd is Louisiana doesn't have a lot of basements.
Oh,
We don't have a
really?
lot of basements.
Not
No,
in
because
South
our
Louisiana.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, our ground is absolutely horrible. You cannot do that. So for that to be there, that's really interesting.
Yeah, we flood very easily. If you look at a lot of the cemeteries in South Louisiana, they're above the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's that part I knew, but yeah, that's really interesting.
Now, something that we did discover Friday, which is really interesting, is at the Delta Grand, and we were told this. There's tunnels that run under the Delta Grand also. And so our next thing that I would like to research is, like, why were there so many tunnels that ran, were there any under the courthouse? Because there's been 5 courthouses that
True.
stood where that courthouse is now. One burned down, and then there were 4 other. So it would be interesting to try to research that and see if that just had the whole block had a tunnel system for whatever they were using it for. I don't know if it was alcohol. Was it, to escort prisoners to the courthouse? I don't know, but we'd like to delve into that more.
Now, to add to that tunnel, the young lady who works at the Grand, she told us a lot of the history of the tunnel, and she was saying, so the Grand was a theater, and in the middle of the show or whatever was going, some of the men would sneak away, go through the tunnel, go visit the brothel, and before the show was over, they would come back to their wives.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if we had told you that one, Marcy. Cece had gave us a rundown of that.
Yeah, she was talking about that, but she did say that's, again, I don't think it's validated.
Yeah, it's not solid.
It's
Yeah.
not solid. Like the tunnels that run all underneath there, it's just, there's no solid evidence of what they were used for. So I think we're going to try to get her to check into it. We'll try to do some records research and things like that, and see if we can't find out, why would you have these tunnels, especially in, like I said, in South Louisiana, where it floods, basically if you spit outside, we flood. So, why were all these tunnels everywhere? It's just really interesting.
If ever you
It
find
is.
out, please let me know. I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we're all kind of like obsessed with the tunnels now. Because now every building in Opelousas that we're going to is connected to that tunnel. And we're like, okay, what's the deal with the tunnels?
Right.
We have to know now.
You'll have to write a
Yeah.
book. The tunnels of...
The tunnels of Opelousas.
Yeah.
There you go.
If you do, hit me up. I'll buy a copy.
All right. Definitely.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely would be an interesting book. Even if it's not a book, it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, South Louisiana has a lot of mystery and a lot of history and a lot of interesting stories and events and activity. I find that a lot of people, when they say, "Oh, you're from South Louisiana," they immediately want to go straight to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And yeah, New Orleans is old, and yes, it does have a lot of activity. But I think they just kind of bypass a lot of places that we have stumbled upon that are just gems, that I would put up against a lot of places, not just in Louisiana, not just New Orleans, but in the country for having activity.
I
It's
agree.
just, there's a lot of places that, I just call people up or email them and say, "Hey, can I come in and investigate?" I mean, all they can do is tell you no. And a lot of these places, we've been very lucky that they let us come in, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
you know.
Agree. Very much agree.
Yeah, I mentioned in our chat before that that's one place that I would love to go to, especially the French district, just because it's so well known and it's really old, and it's just a place that I've always wanted to go to.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from New Orleans. It's very old. There is a lot of activity there. But, I know that a lot of people will say, "Oh, I want to go to New Orleans because that's where everything is." And I can promise you that there's a lot of places that we've discovered that I would put up against even places like the Myrtles or any other
Yeah.
place for activity. I mean,
I agree.
just a lot of activity, and so it's great that we have a connection with so many people who own places or run places, managers, just people like that trust us because they've earned our trust, and they let us come in and keep investigating there because we absolutely love it. And if you look at it, it's kind of like a scientific approach. The more we can go, the more they interact with us, the more we might be able to come up with why.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has it ever
I agree.
Has it ever happened to either one of you or anybody else on your teams that a piece of equipment just will not work for you, but it works like a charm on somebody else?
I don't know if I've ever come across that. I mean, I've had equipment batteries drained
Yeah.
when I just put a battery in something, things like that.
That's frustrating.
I don't think I've ever had that situation. You, Simi, have you?
Michelle and I have this freaky, weird connection. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there are times whenever, say, like Essie's, I can go under and not get a single thing. I give it to her; she can get something. Sometimes I think some spirits just don't want to communicate with you. Maybe they trust somebody a little bit more.
Right.
I don't take offense at all.
Sometimes with our investigations, if we're really not picking up anything, we'll just say, "Okay, somebody else take this piece of equipment," and it works. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's almost like I hate to use this example, but it's almost like when you go to somebody's house and a dog will just totally ignore one person, but absolutely loves somebody else.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So we're at the tail end here already, but before we sign off, I know it's been almost an hour. Before you let the listeners know where they can find you, I'm interested to find out if there's anywhere in the world that you could investigate. Money's not an option. Is there any special place around the world that you would absolutely love to go to?
Go ahead, Simi.
I'm kind of a military nerd. So any chance to go to very historical, say, Civil War location, I'm all for it. You don't even have to tell me. I'm just, okay, we're going.
Nice.
Yeah. I definitely have Gettysburg on my list. I would like to go there if money's no option. So that for sure. And like Simi said, anything Civil War connected, I'd like to go to any of those places. I'm not huge on flying. Not scared of ghosts. I'll sit in a room with 57 ghosts, but
in a dark room.
Don't put a spider in the room with me, and I'm not sure I'll get on. I'm sure I'm not going to get on it. Get on an airplane.
I'm with you. Burn the place. If there's one spider, burn it.
Right. So if I wasn't like deathly afraid of flying, and if somebody was going to pay for me to go, I would love to go over to anywhere like Scotland or Ireland or England, somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, me too. Very, very old over there, and
Yeah.
lots of spirits. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you two being on. And could you please let the listeners know where they can find you?
If they go on Facebook, they can just find us at Louisiana Spirits, and they can also find us on our other chapters. So there's Louisiana Spirits Acadiana chapter, Louisiana Spirits Southwest, North, Central, and East chapter. They can go on our website, which is www.laspirits.com, and they can find all of our investigations, our reports, evidence, everything on there. They can watch the videos, and they can also listen to any kind of EVPs that we've put on there. And also, we're on TikTok and Instagram just under Louisiana Spirits.
Okay.
And also, if anybody's interested in coming visiting Louisiana in April of 2025, we're hosting our second annual paranormal convention.
Yeah.
So if they're interested, check us out on Facebook. It's going to be a great time.
We have our page for that too. It's Cajun Country Paracon, and it's going to be at Vermilionville here in Lafayette. Not only is the Paracon going to be there, but that night, anybody that has VIP tickets, passes, will investigate the village, which is 23-acre village, historic village with historic original Acadian houses there that we have investigated before, and we've all gotten evidence there as well. So that's going to be a fun day and night.
Nice. I forgot to ask this question. I know I said it was at the tail end, but do you ever get EVPs in Cajun or any kind of French or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
I mean, we speak as much as we can.
Yeah.
The little that we do understand. Absolutely. I mean, that's, depending on how far you go back, that was all they spoke.
Yep.
So we kind of have to catch with their lingo, so they can understand us.
Agreed.
And then a lot of places we play Cajun music.
Yes.
We either play really old Cajun music or even modern Cajun music. And we also play like the Regina, because even in a lot of the homes that are even Cajun, people had Reginas that they would play. So it just depends on where we are and what we kind of throw out there to see what we might get.
Nice. And as I mentioned in our chats too, that I have a soft spot for Cajuns because, as you know, I'm of Acadian descent up here in Canada, and Cajuns and Acadians are cousins. So
yes,
we are.
Yes, we are. Okay. Any final thoughts?
No, just certainly
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you.
us.
Yes, appreciate you having us on.
I appreciate you two for being on here. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You
Nice
as
to
well.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to purpleplanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.
Paranormal Heart Podcast.